Hello and thank you for coming to Rick's Garage. Today we're going to continue on with the build of the Yamaha XV1600 Virago in 1/12 scale by Tamiya. And we're going to start off on step 14 going all the way to the very end, so we will be completing the build in this video. Now if you haven't seen my other two videos for steps 1 to 8 and 9 to 13, I will put in the descriptions below a link to those videos. But with all that being said, let's get started on step 14. Okay, in step 14 I've been working on the brake discs, and I just took a 1mm drill bit, which is this right here, and drilled the holes along the disc, and then I also filled in the mold marks on the back with some Tamiya gray putty. And I'm going to then do a little bit of spraying of gray primer on that and double check to see if there's any more sanding or putty work that I need to do before I paint that in the colors that it's asking for in the instructions. Now the other thing that we're going to be doing on step 14 is we're going to start working on the fork, get the fender on, get the wheel on, and also do a little bit of painting on the fork and a couple other details. And some, looks like we got a couple of hoses to put in, and then we can actually get this whole thing done. So what I'm going to be doing is getting all these cut off the sprue, getting these painted in the colors that it's asking for, come back, and we'll get this assembly going, and we'll then move on to the next step. Okay, so the first thing that we need is the fender, looking like this, and there is a raised ledge that goes across the top of the fender. And then we need this piece right here, which underneath has a indent on the back, and that indent is going to go over this raised section. So this is going to go on like that. Okay, when that's installed, that's how that looks, just like that. And we'll put that aside over here, wait for the glue to dry. And the next one we need to do is we need to take our rim, looking like this, into our tire. Now, it's very simple to do. All you got to do is just push that in into the rubber here of the tire, go all the way around, being careful not to put any pressure on this valve stem because you can break that off. So I'm just going to go around like this until I get that tire on that rim. And there we have our rim and our tire. Now there isn't an arrow on the tire to indicate which direction this needs to go, so it doesn't really matter which way you put your rim in, but that's how that looks once that's installed. Okay, next we take our brake discs, and we take this one here that has this notch to it, and that notch is going to go over this lug that's on the back of the tire. So this is going, or the wheel. So this is going to go on like this, and it's going to lock that into place. And that's how that looks on that side. And then we're going to turn this over, and our other brake disc has a locating lug right here that's going to go into the locating hole that's on the back of the rim right there. So this is going to go on like that. Okay, now next what we want to do is we want to take our forks this way around on this side and this way around on the other side and secure that into the wheel using a 1.6 by 20 mil screw. And at the same time we'll affix the fender in between those two forks by slipping this ledge right here under the top detail of the fender like that. Okay, now before I cinch down my forks, which are very loose, I'm going to then maneuver my fender in this position here and then squeeze them into the slots that are underneath that top detail. This is going to be a little fiddly to do, and this is going to do a dry fit. This is going to go in like that. I'm going to go in something like that. So when they're both in correctly, that's how that's going to look. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the edge or on the ledge of these two forks right here, and then squeeze those in like that, and then finalize the screwing in on those forks right down here to make this more secure. So when your forks are on, that's how that should be looking, along with how the fender is looking on the bike. Now this is the front of the bike here. So these reflectors face the back of the bike. That's how that looks once all that is done. Now next, with your assembly in this position with these reflectors facing down like this, you want to take this piece this way around with this screw hole facing up, and you want to slip it into these notches right here on your fork. So this is going to go on like that. But this piece right here, this nameplate, which we have our Yamaha logo painted in black, and I just used pen liner to get that detail in. You're going to take this piece this way around with your assembly like this, again with your reflectors pointed down. You're going to then match this up to your fork assembly up here, where it is going to go into position like that. Okay, so the way I'm going to affix this is that I'm going to put just a little bit of glue in this area right here and over here, close to the edge of this piece. And that's how that looks once that's installed, looking just like that. Okay, now next we have our brake lines to put in. I've already cut and have attached these lines. These are the brake lines. All three of these tubes here are the brake lines. These two right here, the brake lines on each side here, are 44 millimeters, and the one here at the very top is 35 millimeters. And it goes into a lug that goes right there on the top. And that completes step 14. Okay, so I have been working on step 15, mostly just getting all the painting that's required completed. I also did a little bit of assembly. I got these yellow lenses installed on this bar, and also did some detail work on the dash or the speedometer assembly. And I put some clear, Tamiya clear, on those circles right there to simulate glass. So got that in, and also did a little bit of painting on the clear yellow for this piece here. Now what I'm about ready to do is to take the lens looking like this, and there is a notch, don't know if you can see that or not, or not a notch, but a little bit of a lug at the top that's going to match up to the notch that's on this piece right here. So I'm going to get that lens in. Okay, now once you've got your lens in, you want to make sure that you get these notches in correctly, because that's going to align the detail of the headlight correctly. So there's lines and a pattern on this that you need to make sure is aligned up correctly. And on the back of this is that there is also another notch here in the back. I don't know if you can see that or not, which is going to line up with the notch on the back of this piece, which is right here. So we're going to get that glued in. Okay, now next we take our headlight assembly that we've just completed, and we take this part right here this way around, and we're going to then glue this piece on like that. And you want to make sure that it lines up correctly like that, so that the pattern also aligns up correctly. Okay, now once you have your headlight attached to your bar, you want to make sure that it conforms correctly to the back. Right back here, you want to make sure that that is nice and flush, so that you can get your pattern on your headlight in there correctly. But that's how that should look once that is all glued in. So I'm going to let that sit aside there for a moment so that the glue can dry. And the next thing we need to do is take this part, and we take a 94 millimeter tube, and we tie a knot at the end so that it goes through like that. So look at this, kind of hangs right there. And then we take our speedometer assembly and we just match it up to the pattern that's on this part here, and that's going to go on just like that. And once you have that attached, looking like that, that then completes step 15. Okay, now in step 16, we basically have three parts to 16. We have this part up here, which is part 1, where we attach our fork to our bike, we put our headlight assembly onto our fork, we get our handlebars attached, and we work on constructing and painting the seats. Then we have these details right here that we need to work on, our rear view mirror, our handles, and also routing our tubing and piping in through the fork area. And then over here we get our rear view mirrors in, get this headlight or the dash or the speedometer assembly attached to the bike, and then we finally then finish routing our tubing. So right now I'm going to start working on getting this assembled and painted up, and come back and complete this part 1 of step 16. Okay, the way the seat goes together is pretty simple. You have a ledge right here, which is going to conform to this shape right here. So this is just going to go in just like that. Pretty easy. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to get rid of the seam that goes down along the side here. I'm not going to get rid of the seam that goes up to here because I think that's part of the cushion area, but I am going to get rid of the seam that goes along the side. Okay, now back in step 10, I did not put in a part, which is this one right here, C27, which is the kickstand. That's going to go right down under this part right here. I'm going to go ahead and put that in now. So this is the part right here that we have, and that's going to go into the hole right here. So this essentially is going to go in like this way around, and it's going to fit into that hole right down there. So let me get that in. Okay, and that's how the piece looks once it's in. It is not a tight fit. It fits in very loose, so it's a fiddly piece to put in, and I recommend letting that set and dry before you move on, because it can easily break off. But that's our kickstand in place. Okay, now continuing with step 16, we're going to take our bike, and we're going to take our fork, and we're going to attach our fork to our bike. Now on this piece right here, there is a raised screw hole, or a screw lug, that's going to go underneath this part of the front of the frame. So this is going to go on like this. It's going to almost kind of just balance itself in there, but almost as if it's locked in. Then we're going to take this piece here, looking like this with the lip facing forward. We're going to then lower it down on top of the fork, just like that. Then we're going to secure the whole thing in with 1.6 by 20 mil screw. Okay, there's our fork attached to our bike, looking like that, and it does turn left and right. Now, when I was putting the screw in, I was a little concerned that the screw was not long enough to bite into the screw hole right down here at the bottom, because when I put the screw in, it went flush, as you can see there. But as I started to turn the screw, I felt it biting into the screw hole, so it does fit. It just kind of goes in kind of weird, I think. I was expecting a little bit of the screw head to rise up a little bit so that you can screw it in, but in this particular model, when you put the screw in, it does go flush, and then you just have to continue to screw that in until it bites, and then you should be fine. Okay, now next, what we need to do is we need to also attach our headlight, and our headlight assembly, there's no lug. There's just a locating lug right here that's going to go into the slot right underneath here. And it's just kind of sits in there. It doesn't lock into place. So I'm thinking that this might be a little delicate once it's on the bike, because it might be easy to break off. So I'm going to hold off on putting this in right away. What I am going to do though is it also asks us to attach our brake lines, and they go into the lugs underneath this piece right here with our logo on it. So I'm going to get those in now. Okay, and there are the hoses attached, looking like that. Okay, now next they want us to put on the handlebars. But I'm going to put my handlebars on when I put the handles in, because I think putting the handles on first onto the bars and then putting the bars on will be a lot easier. To attach these handles onto the to the lugs where they go, they're going to be directional. There's going to be a half moon shape on this to get those handles in correctly, and I think that'll be a lot easier to do that when the handlebars are off the bike than when they are on the bike. So I'm going to continue to work on the seats here. Right now it's in the dry booth. I just sanded them all down and to get rid of that seam there, and it's now drying with the gray primer. And then once that's done, I'll go ahead and spray this with semi-gloss if that seam is actually gone, and continue on with building the bike. Okay, I got the seat all painted up, looking like that, and there are two lug holes on the back that are going to go on top of the two lugs that are right down here. So this is just going to go on like that. Okay, and that's how that looks. Once you get that installed, looking pretty good. Okay, now next we need to take our handlebars, looking like this, and these two prongs right here are going to go into the holes right here and here. Okay, there's our handlebars in, looking just like that. And next what we need to do is we need to get our headlight assembly on. In the back of this, you'll see that there is a raised bar, almost like a lug. I wouldn't really call it a lug, just a little raised bar right there. And that is supposed to go into the hole right here at the top of this fork area. So this is supposed to go in like this. The problem is there's nothing really supporting that headlight assembly because this raised bar area right here does not go all the way through that hole. So when you glue this on, you want to make sure that the glue is solid so this has a firm hold, because if you don't, it will be very easy to break this off as you move on through the build. Okay, there's our headlight assembly on, looking like that. And as you put that on, make sure that you put it on straight, because you can't put it on crooked. Like I said, there's really no lug or locating lug that will help you guide that in. It's really not held in by the lug. It's not snapped in. It's really held in totally by the glue. So you want to make sure you get that on nice and straight and also flush to where it needs to go. So it should look just like that. Okay, the glue still hasn't dried yet. I'm going to wait a little bit longer for this before I put on the instrument panel, which is this right here. And how that's going to go on, it's going to go on top of our headlight assembly. Whoop. So it's going to go on, if I get my hand on it, go on like that, which is another reason why you want your headlight assembly to be totally dry. And then this tubing right here, which is called the speedometer cable, that's going to go, and you're going to have to thread that through an opening right down into here and then attach it right down there. So again, I'm going to wait for the headlight assembly to dry really well before I actually attempt to put this on. Okay, there's our instrument panel in, and the glue is still drying, so I'm not going to be doing anything with it right now, but you want to make sure that that glue completely dries before you do anything, because it just rests on top. As you can see, it just kind of conforms to the back end of the front of that headlight there. Okay, so you'll make sure that that glue is dry and that is completely solid in place. Now, once it is solid in place, I'm going to be taking this cable here, which is the speedometer cable, and that's then eventually going to connect to this lug down here on the front wheel. So I'm going to put that aside for a moment, still wait for that to dry, and then when that's all done, I'll get those cables taken care of. But we can start to put on the handles on the handlebar. Now, unfortunately, and this is another frustrating aspect of this build, the handles right back here is a slot where the lug of the handlebar is going to rest in place. It doesn't go into a hole or any type of a shaped hole. It's just a slot. So again, when this handle is on the handlebar, It's just going to rest on top. So you're going to want to make sure that the glue is dry before you do any work on the handles in terms of connecting the tubing to it, because you can actually dislodge it or move it. So I'm going to put the handle on. This particular handle goes on the left side. So this is just going to rest right on top of the handle like this. That's all it's going to do. And then I'm going to glue that in place. Okay, so that's the handle on the bike, looking like that. And I'm going to turn the bike upside down to see if I can't show you how it attaches to the handlebar. And right there, you should be able to see how it just kind of rests inside the groove there. I know it's kind of hard to see, but that's how it goes into the handle right there. And because the instructions are not clear on exactly how that handle should be positioned, I positioned mine by doing a dry fit of the mirror. The mirror is going to go into the hole here at the top, just like that. And so I positioned my handle so that it more or less aligns, the mirror aligns with the handlebar here at the top. So that's how my handle is going to go on the bike. Again, unfortunately, the instructions are not clear, but that's my best guess, and that's how I'm going to do it. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the speedometer cable, which is this cable right here that's hanging out right now toward the front of the bike. The instructions are not really all that clear, so I'm going to show you what I did. The speedometer cable starts from the speedometer up here, and it runs out the back, and then I put it into the space between the front headlight assembly and the fork. There's a little tiny space there. Then I ran it down this way, and there's a space behind this front plate here, the logo plate. There's a little tiny space in there as well, and I threaded it through there, and then it comes out this way right now. It's going to end up on the wheel later on when this is all dry. The instructions aren't really all that clear, I don't think, on exactly how to run the cable, at least from the speedometer, and how it runs behind the front light assembly. So that's what I did, and I thought that was a very neat way of doing it. Rather than running it in front of the headlight assembly, there is a little tiny space right behind this assembly and the fork. So I hope that helps you in trying to figure out how to thread that speedometer cable. Okay, this might be a little bit hard to see. I'm going to try to turn the bike so that you can see a little bit better. But the way that I did the left brake line is that it starts here, runs up this way behind this plate area, goes up behind this part, through this area of the fork, comes up behind this light, and then up into the handle. Okay, there's our speedometer cable, and it comes all the way down this way and goes into this little lug right down here at the bottom of this wheel. That's a tight fit, and the instructions do call for it to be 94 millimeters, but you also have to tie a knot. So I think maybe from the knot to the end of the line it's 94 millimeters, but here they're just saying make it a 94 millimeter tubing. I would say that if I were to do this again, I would make the entire length of the tubing about 96 or 97 millimeters, and then tie your knot and you should be fine. But at 94, complete 94 millimeters, it does fit, but it is a tight fit. Okay, now the right brake line goes from this part right here, from that lug, goes all the way up and into that lug on the handlebar, or on the handle, like that. Okay, so that's all of our hoses connected. So the only thing to do now is put the rear view mirrors on and get that license plate attached, and our build will be complete. And here is our completed model. Now, even though this model presented itself with quite a lot of challenges, I did enjoy building it. I mentioned most of the challenges during the build, such as attaching the engine to the chassis. The exhaust to the engine was also a bit of a challenge. but I would say that the biggest frustration I had with parts not really fitting secure in place, such as the cylinders, the headlight and instrument assemblies, and a few other details such as the handle grips and even the rear license plate and the rear view mirrors, and the lack of instruction clarity, hoses not to scale or really clear to the correct size, such as what was needed for the speedometer. But all in all, as you see, the completed model, it's a beautiful bike. It will look good on any collection on your shelf or wherever it is you display your models. But in my opinion, this is not for a beginner. In fact, I would say you would need a lot of model building experience for this build, as well as a lot of patience. For me, I think someone who is at the moderate building level, moving toward the advanced skills, would be able to turn out a very good model. But this is definitely not for someone who's just getting into model building. Now, all that said, I really hope you enjoyed the series of building the Yamaha XV1600 Virago with the build tips, painting, and how the model is put together, and you'll give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, please remember to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you can be notified of new videos that are posted. Other than that, always have fun in your garage, your workshop, or wherever it is you build your models. And until next time, thanks for watching.